Hello there and welcome to The Meaningful Stitch. This is episode 54 and I am Amy Palco and I'm coming to you from Edinburgh, Scotland, and this is where I like to share my knitting practice and my knitting projects. I have some finished objects for you, I have quite a few whips, I have an idea of what I want to cast on next, and I have a fair few acquisitions this time also. But before we get into all of that, let me tell you that in the description box below you will find links to everything that I'm talking about during the course of this episode. There is also a link to my Patreon account where you can find a free post which will give you slightly more extensive notes, including some images. Patreon is also where you can support me and support the channel and have various different membership tiers that you can join. And yes, I think that's everything I needed to tell you before we got going. So, the card that I've drawn for us, because I do like to draw as an oracle card before each one of our deep dives into knitting practice and projects, is from the Sacred Rebel Oracle. And it's a beautiful deck by Alana Fairchild, and it's one of my very favourites. When people ask me what is a good oracle deck to purchase, particularly if it's going to be their first one and they're not really very sure about which one to choose, I quite often recommend this particular deck because I think it's a really good one. And the card that we've received this time for today is this one here, which is every journey starts with a single step. Or we could think of it as every knitting project begins with a single stitch. So I'm just going to read you a little bit from the guide, not very much because the guide for this particular deck is really extensive, so I'm only going to read you a very small portion of it. But it says, just as a butterfly leaves the chrysalis behind when it's time to spread its newly formed wings, so too are you ready to leave behind what once was and embrace what is more appropriate for you at this time. There is an element to the journey you are embarking upon that is unknown. Perhaps it is news to you that you're even taking a journey. However, the realization that travelling along a familiar path brings no guarantees is more likely. This open, unscripted quality to your journey will help you gain the most from your experiences. You see, this journey is a spiritual gift. It is an invitation from the great loving heart of the universe, calling you into something that you would not have otherwise found. You're not supposed to know all of the details, nor how it's going to work out before you set out. You're just meant to take one step after the other, again and again, so that you can receive the gifts that are headed your way. Now, that very much speaks to my own experience of my knitting practice. I don't necessarily always know what I'm going to cast on next. And sometimes I find myself in those kind of in-between places where there's almost like a panicky cast on, whereas something has to go onto the needles and not a large amount of thought goes into what comes next. So I like to try and slow that down, try to be present with where my own knitting journey is directing me, and then cast on the next piece. So you'll see that I've cast on a couple of different things to share with you today. Some I've made more progress on than others. But before we get to all of that, let me share with you what it is that I'm wearing. So this is a jumper that I knitted back in 2021. It's by the designer Joanna Ang. That's right. And it's called the Fairy Bouquet. And I knitted mine using a strand of Holst Supersoft in the colourway Brandy with Holst Titicaca in the colourway Fiesta. And so I'm going to stand up so you can see it a little better. But here it is. You can see that it's bobbled slightly, but not too badly. It's got a lot of twisted rib, particularly in this beautiful detail down the sleeves. I really love the attention to detail and the way in which the texture in the sleeve, the pattern in the sleeve, very elegantly extends down into the rib. And the same goes for this twisted rib section here in the yoke and how it connects to this lovely design in the sleeve. And then we have these very simple eyelet pattern up here, which kind of mirrors this slip stitch design which I think looks a little bit like butterflies, but maybe it is fairies. So there we go. This is the Fairy Bouquet by Joanna Ang. I am wearing it today because even although we are fast approaching June, and I would say that means we're pretty solidly should be in the beginnings of summer, it does not feel like summer in Scotland. We have had a lot of rain, and we've had some high winds, and we've had some quite chilly temperatures. So it is not especially warm, but it's good time for these jumpers, I think, which are kind of fingering weight jumpers, knitted on a loose gauge, something like a lento or a ranunculus. That kind of weight, I think, is absolutely ideal for this kind of, shall we say, changeable weather. So there you go. There's my Fairy Bouquet in Holst, Supersoft and Titicaca. Okay, well, let me go on then to tell you what is off my needles, because I have two big shawl projects that have come off the needles. I'm going to take them in chronological order. So the first one cast off was my Garter goodness. So this is a beautiful design by Stephen West. You can see that one side, the fade is a lot stripier than the other. There we go, that's the side I prefer. So it's a beautiful big shawl design by Stephen West. It's very simple. It's a lovely shape, and the shape is kind of created with these eyelet increases. I have used some beautiful yarn, which I picked up in Rhinebeck last year, which is called Yin Yang Fingering by Loop Studio. Is that right? Loop Fibre Studio. And thank goodness for writing show notes, that's all I can say. Loop Fibre Studio, and I bought these because they were mill ends, and I love a bargain, so you show me a bargain bin and I'm all over it. So yes, I picked up 4 skeins. One was this skein here, which is kind of like a dark navy with almost like a very pale peach strand woven through. And then the next skein was this kind of, that's the blended bit, but here it is in its most concentrated form, I suppose, which is that navy with that peachy colour, but also with a red strand now woven through too. Through to this next skein, which was navy with a red strand, and then finally navy with a hot pink strand. So I've just started, every time I got down to about 20 grams, 25 grams left of my yarn, that's when I started to stripe in the next skein. And that's how I worked through all of the skeins. I'm really pleased with how it's worked out. It is really, really big, as you can see. Once again, this section here, I think, kind of divides people's opinions, but I've always really liked it because I think it folds in just at the neck and adds a little bit of extra structure, actually, just round here, like that, which I quite like, and it also creates a little bit more heat and layering just where I kind of need it. So I'll stand up again to show you what it looks like. But I'm so pleased with it. It's got a massive I-cord. I did manage to play Yarn Chicken and win, so that was a relief. But there we go. So this is the Garter goodness. Now I have knitted, you can see how big it is. I have knitted quite a few of these now. I've knitted one in lace weight yarn using Kinross lace in the colourway Wildflower. I have knitted a beautiful one using Tôt le Matin yarn and La Bien-Aimée, where I striped in some mohair to kind of bring it to a close and to cast off in. And then I've also knitted one using Lichen and Lace in their singles, and the colourways that I chose were kind of very sort of silvery greys, and then I moved into some Ripples craft yarn, which is a yarn dyer up north, and that was kind of like a grey with kind of mossy green speckles. And then the very last colour I had was Poison Ivy, which was a colourway that I got from Woolenvine over in New York. So, which was also, that was all single ply merinos. So the effect that I think that kind of creates was almost like a large quartz boulder that had some moss creeping over it. It was very kind of nature inspired. This one is not quite so nature inspired, but I do think that it really kind of incorporates some of the very strong colours that I really enjoy wearing, and so I've actually been getting a large amount of wear out of this already. One thing I should say is that I have yet to wash and block this. I finished it just before I had my visitors over, and I will speak a little bit more about that later, but because of that I didn't have anywhere to pin it out. And for some reason it's just kind of dropped off my list of things to do. So I should really pencil it back in and get it washed and blocked. But in the meantime, it has been getting somewhere, despite, like I said, the expectation of us having some slightly warmer weather. It's turned out not to be the case, and I'm getting a good chance to wear some of my slightly heavier weight shawls at this time of year than I might do otherwise. So there we go. That's the Garter goodness. Nothing really more to say about that project other than I just love a Garter project. And I found when I got to the end of my last Soho square knitted in linen quill, that was the one that had the pink, the bright hot pink on one side, pink pop I think it was called on one side, and blue on the other side. When I got to the end of that very large garter stitch project, I really needed another garter stitch project on my needles. And the reason behind that is because I feel like I consistently need to have a garter stitch project. I find garter stitch projects are ideal for when I'm reading. So I read a lot on my iPad, particularly books that are concerned with astrology, as I'm studying for a faculty exam just now. So yes, when I'm studying, or when I'm on a class call, or when I'm in a group call, I'm quite often knitting, and I find a garter shawl just works really, really well for me on the needles. I also find it a very soothing and very calming project as well. There's something where I don't have to think. There's thought that goes into the beginning of it, and there is intentionality in my choices. But then moving on from that, I can just kind of surrender and give myself over to the project. So much in the way that our card illustrated this idea that every journey is begun with a single step, I think, when we look at these large garter projects, every large garter shawl begins with one stitch, and then another joins it, and then another, until we end up with these wonderful big, what do we call them, schlankets? Blankets masquerading, or shawls masquerading as blankets, or blankets masquerading as shawls. I think that way around. But yes, they take us on these wonderful journeys, and then because they're so with us over a long period of time, then I think a lot of experiences, a lot of thoughts, a lot of images get woven into the fabric itself as we live alongside our knit, and it accompanies us on the journey. So yes, more on that shortly, because needless to say, if that was a cast-off garter project, you can rest assured there was a cast-on garter project, but we will get to that just shortly. Next up, I want to show you my next finished object, and this is an absolute stunner, even if I do say so myself. And this is, oh my goodness, look at it on the screen. This is the Artus shawl, and that's a design by Natasja Hornby, who is Moonstruck Knits. This was a kit that was sent to me by North Bay Fibre in their Elemental Sport, which was incredibly kind of them. Jill sent it and said that should be grateful for a review of the yarn. There wasn't any other obligation than that, and I'm quite happy to tell you that this yarn is absolutely delicious. It is a knitter's dream. Truly, truly. It's 100% cormo. The colour, the dye that it gets into the fibres is such an intense, can you see that? Such an intense and even coverage. It feels amazing. It was wonderful to knit with it, but then it's just been a delight to wear. And as I said, because of the slightly cooler, unexpected weather, I have actually got more wear out of this than I expected to when I cast off. When I cast off, I thought, oh, I'll put it aside and I'll get really good wear out of it this winter. Not least because my winter coat is not too far off this particular shade here. As it is, I haven't had to put it away and I've been wearing it with my leather jacket. So, so there we go. But let me talk you through the shawl pattern a little bit, the shawl design. Because what happens is we start up here with this section here, which is a beautiful textured stitch pattern, which is really very simple, really very easy, easy to follow. And then it's broken up with this 1x1 stranded colour work. I'll just show you that on the back. So that does mean that you are having to do a little bit of stranded colour work on the wrong side. Now, if you have not done a lot of stranded colour work on the purl side, please do not worry, because neither had I. I had done a little bit. In fact, I think the first time I did it was on the Geweef wrap that I knitted from the Neons and Neutrals book, the beautiful collection curated by Amy Gilles. So this is probably the only second time that I've done that. And actually in both occasions, I think it was just 1x1 stranded knitting. So it takes a little moment, I suppose, to kind of orientate yourself, because you can't quite hold your yarn in the same way as you would hold if you were just doing knit stitches. But bringing in the purl stitch with the two strands, you just have to give it a little bit of thought before you begin, and then actually it's much easier than you expect it to be, not least because it is just one stitch in one colour and one in the next. So we had these 3 bands of stranded colour work here before we then moved into this absolutely fabulous mosaic knit border. Now, I had been, like I said, I've been given this beautiful kit. I think it's kit number 6 if you're looking for it on their website, in the Elemental Sport base, which is 100% Cormo fibre. And I should just run through the colours here. This is Lotus, this is Holly, this is Natural, this is Coho, and I had 2 skeins of the Coho and I had 1 skein of every other one. And this is Rock Bottom, which kind of looks black, but it's not quite black. It's a really interesting colour, almost like, I don't know, like almost like a deep purpley grey or an aubergine. It's really beautiful. So yes, when you get into this this big beautiful border section, you're really having to make your choices, I suppose, about where your colour placements are going to go. Well, you've had to decide that really from the off. I knew that this was going to be my main colour because I had 2 skeins of it, but I had 1 skein of every other colour. So I could have chosen to make this black and white here, and then the black and white would have been, or the natural and the rock bottom would have been the red and the pink with the grey in between, and this would have been the rock bottom and the natural up here. And that would have created quite a different look, I think. One of the reasons why I've chosen to go with the colour arrangement that I have is really because I love this red and pink together so much. And I thought it's not generally a colour combination that you see a huge amount, but I just love the poppiness of it and the aliveness of it. And so I really wanted to have those two colours close together and then well represented throughout the rest of the shawl. So that's something to think about if you are considering casting on this shawl, just about where you're going to place your colours and what colours you really want to, what colour pairings you really want to emphasise. I also then had to decide, whether I was going to have the white, this natural at the top, or at the bottom, and switch this round. And I decided that I was going to keep this darker colour down here, the rock bottom, closer to the edge of the shawl, just because I thought it added kind of a bit of weight as we come to the cast off. And that weight is carried right through to the amazing 7-stitch I-cord bind off. We've also got another little section here of the 1x1 stranded colour work, and then we have this, look at the back of it, we have this 7-stitch I-cord, which kind of creates this beautiful sort of heavy weight base to the shawl that I just absolutely love. Back in the Coho colourway again, so your main colour. But I love how that then sits. It kind of creates a sort of a, I don't know, I want to use the word ballast, but I don't think that's the right word. It creates a lovely balance, I think, and weight to the shawl overall by adding in this very large, I think that's the largest I-cord I've ever done before. And yes, it was a little bit labour intensive, but I find that actually, I find you just kind of get into a rhythm with it, and then before you know it, it's cast off. I tend to find something interesting, a good podcast to listen to, or something to watch on the telly, and then I'm away with it. So the other wonderful thing about this 7-stitch I-cord cast off is that she has you space some stitches around the edging, so that you are creating a little bit more stretch, because one of the problems with an I-cord cast off can often be that it kind of restricts the movement and the stretch of the fabric. But by adding in these extra little breaks, I suppose, in your pickups, then it means that you've got a little bit more give than you would otherwise, and they are interspersed, as you can just see, throughout the border. So that must have been my phone. There we go. That's my dry cleaning ready to be picked up. And then when you get to the little edge here, the little point, is the pickup, the gaps in the pickup are emphasised. They come a bit closer together, just to kind of, again, create a little bit more give just at the point at which you need it, which is very clever and is very thoughtful for shawl design. I think sometimes shawls can be designed with not a great degree of thought as to the construction, or to how it's going to sit on your body, or to actually how the fabric is going to perform. And I think Natasja Hornby, who is one of the most wonderful shawl designers, truly, and I definitely do have more of her designs in my library and in my queue, I think that's one of the things that she really excels in, is she kind of brings a level of thought, again, to the detail, much like with this jumper by Joanna Ang. There is a real delight in the details, and a lot of attention paid, so that when you're knitting it, you can see why something has been done the way that it's been done, and it just brings a little bit of delight. So if you want to see the back of the shawl, just because that's where the mosaic knitting, I think, mosaic knitting will create a right side and a wrong side, but even the wrong side, I think, is actually very beautiful. One thing that I really loved about this yarn was its stitch definition, which I think you can really see in the textured stitch section. But what I think it also did is it really blended very well in the colour work. And actually this, I was a wee bit worried about the length of some of my floats, thinking that my finger might get caught in them or something, but actually that's not happened at all. It's kind of creating a very lovely cohesive fabric. So there we go. That's the Artus shawl by Natasja Hornby in North Bay Fibre Elemental Sport. So those are my 2 cast-offs, but I do have some cast-ons. So, well, let's begin with the Garter project, seeing as I've already referenced it. So it is another Soho square. Now this is a beautiful design by Jackie Rose, and I have knitted this in, or I am knitting this in Pearl Soho's linen quill. Now, linen quill isn't actually available over here in the UK, so I have to get it shipped over. And because Jackie was coming over anyway, I chose some colours and shipped some skeins to Jackie, and she brought it over for me. So that's meant that I've been able to make a good start, a very good start on my Soho square, because as you'll see, I've done quite a lot already. So this is Lavender Opal, this is Raw Sienna, this is Dark Iris, and this colour here is Stillwater Blue. Now there's a bit of a story behind why I chose these colours, and it was that I was on Instagram scrolling through my feed, as you do, when I came across this amazing image of the moon. I think it was possibly on NASA's Instagram feed. And so often when we see photographs of the moon, it's reflecting back the light of the sun. So all we really see is this kind of beautiful pearlescent sort of silvery colour, maybe a few sort of darker patches of pewter, but generally it reflects back to us as this kind of pearlescent globe in the sky. But this particular image was a close-up, and so rather than just reflecting back the light of the sun, you actually saw some of the colours of the moon itself. Now this image may have been treated, it might have been augmented, I don't really know, but the colours really caught my attention. So these are the colours that were, and I'll pop the image up so that you can see that just now, so that then you can see that the colours that I've chosen are the colours of the moon. And so from that perspective, this is the bright side of the moon, and this is going to be the dark side of the moon. And I have already started on the dark side of the moon, and I've made pretty good progress. I've got probably about this before I start on my stripes. It is for me a wonderful comfort knit, and like I said, it's what I work on when I'm in my astrology classes, or when I'm sitting reading, or sometimes just when you need a little bit of comfort. It's also very good social knitting, and a lot of this first half was knitted as social knitting when I had my visitors over, and so it gave us a lot of opportunity just to sit and blether and just let your hands work away with some beautiful yarn in lovely colours, and it was just the perfect knitting project. I'm so grateful to Jackie for bringing the yarn over, and and yes, I'm sure this probably will not be my last one, because it's just a project that really has my heart. So, but yes, it's a lot of fun to, I think, choose your colours based on a particular image that means something to you, that kind of holds a kind of a significance for you. And so that's what this is. This is my moon shawl. So there we go, that's the first. And I'm all tangled up. Oh, there it is. So that's the first one that I've cast on since I last saw you. I have cast on something else, and this is another shawl. This is the Curvette by Stephen West. Now you might remember that I've knitted, if you've watched this before, if you're a long time watcher of this, you might remember that I've knitted a Curvette before. I used some beautiful single fleece alpaca, striped with some kind of fluorescent variegated mohair silk from Fibre. and the mohair was, sorry, the alpaca was undyed from a local alpaca flock. So I love that shawl and I wear it a lot, but what I wanted was another summer shawl. This is on the proviso that we ever get a summer. Maybe it's for 2025, I don't know. But basically I decided that I was going to use some skeins that I had in my stash, which is the BC Garn Jeans Reborn, and it's in one of the darker shades of denim of that range. I really enjoy this yarn, particularly I think because it does have such good ethical roots to it. This is recycled denim mixed with recycled plastic bottles, so it feels like it's very ethical, and it is a really lovely yarn. So I decided, oh, hang on a second, I can show it to you. This is it. So like I said, this is a slightly darker one. It's listed as a worsted weight. But it does actually look more like perhaps a sport weight, potentially. But the weird thing is it does kind of knit up as a worsted weight. So it's a strange yarn. It doesn't behave quite as you expect it to, but I think I love it even more because of that. It is very soft because obviously it's a cotton mix yarn. And yes, so I've got 3 skeins of this, and then I took a mini set of Lithuanian linen that I had purchased from Midwinter Yarns, and I've made a magic ball. So basically, I've taken each one of the skeins, and I've tied it onto the previous one and wrapped it in the ball, and then tied on the next skein. So I think I've got 12 mini skeins all kind of in this. I think together it adds up to 450 meters, which is more than enough for what I need, because I'm using the linen in place of the mohair. So in the original design, the eyelet rows are done in mohair, and then you've got like, I think 4 different colours of 4-ply, which you then move through in kind of colour blocks for the rest of the shawl. And the shawl pretty much just goes like this. You know, there's not a lot of variation until you get towards the end. I think there's a bit of variation in the border, stitch-wise, design-wise, but yes. In fact, I think I pretty heavily modified the border in my previous one, because I also added beads. I will not be adding beads to this one. This is the idea behind this, is that it's going to be a much more casual summer shawl to wear, and it's going to be kind of a comfortable and easy piece to kind of throw on, just to kind of protect my very pale shoulders from going kind of the shade of this in the sun. I have to be very careful when it gets very hot. That's not true. I have to be very careful when the sun does make an appearance that I don't burn. And so one of my ways of managing that is obviously by using a very good SPF, but it's also finding some summer pieces that provide some coverage, and that's what I'm hoping for this. And having wound this magic ball, well, obviously I can see that my next colour is going to be green after this one, and I think the colour after that might be a red, but I cannot remember the order that I've rolled these in, and they were quite sort of eclectic, random colours anyway. They weren't kind of a fade or of one particular tone or shade or anything. So I'm going to have a lot of fun working through my magic ball. And obviously, because these eyelet rows at the beginning are so much shorter, then I'm getting like a lot of the first colour, which is absolutely fine, because then as we move through the shawl and these eyelet rows get a lot longer, then you're not going to be seeing quite as much of each colour as you are with the earlier ones. So there we go. That's my curvette, my summer curvette with my magic ball of linen minis. Okay, so Something that's not a cast on, but I have made some progress on, is my Septennial Twist. Now, this is a beautiful design by Kelly Ordman. It was designed for the 7th anniversary of Ginger Twist Studio, because Kelly is a friend of Ginger Twist Studios, and she's done quite a few designs, like anniversary designs. I think she also did a beautiful one for the 10th anniversary. But this is the one that she did for the 7th. And so this is called the Septennial Twist. And basically it begins, as you can see, just basically a straight block of knitting with this lovely little cable design at either side. So you've got a little 1x1 cable and a 2x2 cable. And so it's very easy, very straightforward knitting. I am over halfway. and yes, I think the idea is that you're going to like fold it over and pick up stitches for your neck, for your band that goes the whole way around. I will put a photograph up of it because I'm not describing it very well. I should have looked over the pattern again. I am obviously I'm just going and going and going until I've got this large piece of knitting completed, and then I'll be picking up stitches to do the band that will go all the way around the neckband and around the sides and the back, and then I'll be picking up stitches to do the wristband. The wristband? That's not, yes, is that right? Wristband? Doesn't sound right. But yes, finishing off the sleeves. So there we go, that's the Septennial Twist. This is knitted using the Knitting for Olive merino, held with their silk mohair in the colourway Pink Daisies, which is just the most exquisite shade of pink. I really, really like this. And it's knitted at quite a large gauge, so my needles that I'm using, I'm pretty sure are 5s. Let me see. Yep, they're 5mm needles. It was possibly a US size 8. I'm not entirely sure, but yes, 5mm needle. So it's quite an open gauge. So it means that it knits up relatively, well, I would say relatively quickly, but relatively easily. So this is a lovely knit. I should also say too that I'm using my Chiagu red laces for this particular project, and that's because the red laces have a stainless steel core to them, which means they don't hold a memory, so they always stay straight. And when you're knitting a project like this, having a cord that stays straight is definitely an advantage, rather than one that keeps wanting to curl back in on itself. So there we go, that's the Septennial Twist, and I will continue just to make some progress with that. So I am hoping to have that as a beautiful piece to wear this autumn. But yeah, I may get some wear out of it before then. And one last piece, I think. I'm just going to double check my notes. Yeah, one last piece, and this is the piece that I'm kind of a little bit obsessed with right now and can't quite put down. So, in fact, I would have recorded this episode earlier in the day had I not wanted to do just one more repeat. You know how that goes. So this is the Scotchbroom wrap cardigan. So basically this is, oh, I'm holding it back to front, that doesn't help. This is the wrap cardigan. There we go, like that, by Woolen Pine, and it's called the Scotchbroom. So it's got this really beautiful detail. It's kind of hard to show you because it's not been blocked, but it's got this lovely detail, this I-cord pick up, this I-cord cast on, and then you pick up your stitches and do a little bit of ribbing before moving into the back, and then you knit your fronts before you join underneath the arms, and you're doing your increases at either end to make this beautiful shaped piece of knitting here. And then you leave all your stitches on the needles, and then you knit this great big long tie, and then when you get to this point here, that's when you start adding it onto your live stitches. So it results in a really beautiful piece. I won't try it on just now, but once I've got it finished, I definitely will. But I suppose the real sort of eye-catching piece of this wrap cardigan is the Scotchbroom lace, for which it's been named in the sleeves. You see this? So this is actually a really relatively easy lace pattern, although it looks a little bit complicated. It's really pretty straightforward. And yes, so I started that sleeve yesterday, sort of late afternoon perhaps. So I'll definitely finish it today, and then I'll crack on with the second sleeve, and then it will be weaving my ends in, washing and blocking. I think it will grow a little bit because it is actually a superwash merino. So this yarn, I should tell you, is from the Yarn Collective. It's called Fleurville 4-ply. It's a superwash merino. I think it's 350 meters per 100 grams. I got it from Lovecrafts. I think there was a sale on it. In fact, I know there was a sale on it, but it must have been quite a good sale because I bought quite a lot of it. And I will share a little bit more about what else I bought from that same range. But I think this yarn was done in a collaboration with Melody Hoffman, who's of Bee Mandarines. She's a wonderful designer and podcaster based over, I think, in France. And so all of her colorways in this particular range, this particular palette, are designed to sort of reflect flowers in a garden. So this particular colorway I think is called Brunia, Brunia. And because it is hand-dyed, I have tried to take that into account with kind of moving through one skein into the next. So I've striped a little bit. When I've got towards the end of one skein, I've started to stripe in the next. And also with the sleeves, I finished it off with, I started it, I did the pick up and I've knitted about half of this using one skein. And then I've attached a new skein to finish the sleeve. And I've got that older skein here, which I'm going to pick up. So the pickup of both sleeves is going to be in the same skein, just to make sure that I've kind of, I suppose, managing any kind of colour variation that you sometimes get in hand-dyed yarn, which I think is just something you need to do with garment knitting in particular. Or any kind of knitting where you're knitting a large swathe of it, and that kind of, those sort of colour transitions are a little bit more noticeable. So I'm just managing my colour that way, my skeins in that way. Well, there's going to be one more thing I was going to say about this. Oh yes, that's it. I had a little look through some of the projects, because this is a brand new project that's just come out from Woollen Pine. And I had a little look through and at the projects on Ravelry to see, what people's tips were and what they recommended, and did they make any modifications. I think that's one of the places where Ravelry can really kind of come into its own. So if it is a website that's available to you and accessible for you, then I do really recommend that you take some time to look through some of these projects' databases, because they're full of really valuable information. And so, having done so, I decided that actually I was going to go to a size which was about 1 inch of negative ease for me, rather than go to a size that was going to be 2 or 3 inches positive ease. So and also I decided that I was going to keep the cropped look of the wrap. So you'll see there's actually only, at the moment, there's only about 7 inches between the arm, the joining of the underneath the armhole and the bottom of the waistband. Like I said, it is knitted in superwash merino. Superwash merino has a tendency to grow, and that was another one of my Another one of the reasons why I chose to knit it at a slightly smaller size and keep to the shorter length is because I strongly suspect that in the washing and blocking this is going to stretch out a little bit, and I didn't want to end up too long or too oversized. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when I wash and block it, but I'm really, really pleased with this. Again, I think this would be a really lovely transitional piece. And the sleeves are just spectacular. So it's just making me super happy right now, and I just want to knit on that all the time. And so consequently, I think it's going to be finished quite soon. So that is all of my projects that are currently on the go, but I did want to share one more project with you, and it kind of builds on this wrap cardigan, because when that sale on the Fleurville 4-ply came out, and this was a while ago, this was maybe about two years ago when I bought this, I bought some other colours at the same time. So I also bought this one here, which is hibiscus. I bought this one, no sorry, this is hellebore, this is hibiscus. This one is, oh no, this is peony, this is peony, this is hellebore, this is hibiscus, and then I've got poppy as well, which is here. So these are the other 4 colours that I got, and just to show you that with this, because I think I'm going to have a skein left over of the Brunia, so I'm going to have these 5 shades. And I was thinking that actually I have some beautiful mohair that was gifted to me by a very kind viewer, and it's Miss Babs Moonglow lace yarn, and it's their kid mohair silk, and it was the special colourway for Rhinebeck 2022, and it's called Harvest Plenty, and this is it here. So if I add that to this, I won't add in the other Brunia because you've seen it already, but you can see just how incredibly beautiful those colours are. They're very blendy, there's not a massive amount of contrast between them, but I think they're very beautiful. So what I'm considering doing is caking these up and knitting myself another Fanta stitch. Now, I've knitted 2 Fanta stitches. In fact, I think I showed one of them in the previous episode, which would have been, let me see, I brought it through just in case. Yes, it's this one here. So I've knitted this, I showed you this in the last episode. But I have also knitted, this is actually the first one that I knitted, which I will also have worn a huge amount. It's a very flexible shawl because it uses so many colours in it that actually it ends up going with so much of your wardrobe. So it's a very useful shawl, and it actually is a very wearable shawl, although I think certainly when I looked at it the first time I thought this looks very wacky and I don't think it's going to fit into my wardrobe. Not true. I wear these a lot of the time. These are really easy go-to pieces for me because they do have so many different colours which are then also represented in my wardrobe. But not only that, it's a hugely fun knit. So this is the Fanta Stitch by Stephen West, and it's and I think it uses 7 colours, and obviously I'll have 5 skeins and the mohair. I think, isn't that what I had for this one? Let me see. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I had 4 colours in the mohair in this one. So it'll just be kind of very, making some colour decisions, colour placement decisions. So that's one thing that I'm deciding on. The alternative is, as somebody who has knitted a huge number of Stephen West designs, I am faintly embarrassed that I have still never knitted a Vertices Unite. and it's a 5 skein project, And obviously using the spare skein of the Brunia, I would actually have enough yarn to do a Vertices Unite. And then maybe any leftovers I could combine with this for something else. So, decisions. I also do really want to knit some summer pieces, and I think that's probably going to be what I focus on next. Maybe a Soho top, and that's been in my queue and on my mind for quite a little while. So I'm quite tempted by something like that, and maybe some other kind of thing that's easy to throw on, kind of protect my skin. But yes, that's the next. I think those are the next big shawl projects. But at the moment I've got plenty to keep me going, so I don't need to think too much about what's coming up next. I think I should really just focus on the here and now. So that's the what's next. New to me, oh my goodness. So I've been to a yarn festival, I've been to a woolen mill, and my new to me absolutely reflects that. So no apologies. I didn't go absolutely daft, but you know, I have made some purchases. So what do I have to show you? So I bought I bought a sweater quantity of Di Gilpin's Laland DK. This was when I was at the Woolly Good Gathering, which was a wonderful festival that was held at Summer Hall in Edinburgh. And I think there was about, I don't know, maybe about 30 stalls altogether at the marketplace. And there was a lot of breakout space, a lot of social space. There was live music, there was food trucks. There was lots of friends, and it was a lovely but quite chilly weekend. but we did get some sunshine, not like the torrential rain we've had ever since. And it was a really, really lovely event. It looks like it's going to be running again next April, so that's a lovely thing. But I wanted to show you the things that I purchased from the Woolly Good Gathering, and then I'll show you something else as well. But this is the first thing that I got, which is this beautiful 100% lamb's wool. Now, I've knitted with the Laland DK before. I knitted in the colourway Furs, which is Scots for gorse, that kind of broom yellow flower that you see on the prickly plants that grow across the hillsides in Scotland. So I knitted the Corrin cardigan by Rebecca Clow using the Furs colourway of the Laland DK. This one is called Swift, and I don't know if it's showing up, but it's a very dark navy marled with a natural, and it's lovely and soft. And I'm imagining quite a simple sweater. So I've been thinking about Ivana from the Republic of Me podcast. She has a beautiful design called the In and Out Raglan, and she was wearing some of her In and Out Raglans when she was over visiting, and they sit so beautifully on her shoulders. So I'm very tempted by that. And the other thing I'm tempted by is to modify Andrea Mowry's Weekender to kind of create a little bit more neck shaping, because I've noticed that, I mean, I do like a boat neck, but that boat neck seems to be very up close, very tight up next to the throat. So I'm considering doing a little bit of modification of that, because I really love the way that the shoulders sit in that pattern, in that design. So, and I think it would look very cool in a marl. So that's one thing that I purchased. Another thing that I purchased was, here it is, it's right next to me. I bought 3 skeins of undyed silk mohair by Zakami. So this is 72% kid mohair, 28% silk. It's 420 meters per 100 grams. And I have 3 skeins. I don't quite know what I'm going to do with it. It was a very good price. They were £11 a skein, which I thought was very reasonable. So I bought 3, which means I've kind of got enough to do a sweater with it, a jumper, if I was holding it with either another skein of a fluffy lace weight or with a strand of another yarn, like a fingering weight. So there we go, that's the mohair. And then the other thing that I bought, sorry, I'm absolutely surrounded by yarn now, and everything is kind of, there it is. Everything is fallen on the floor. It all looks very calm up here, but down here it's a different story. So this is the other yarn that I bought while I was at Woolly Good Gathering. This is Langsund, which is 100% Shetland wool. This is their lace weight, which is 548 metres or 599 yards per 100 grams. This shade is Winter Girse, and it's from the November 23 clip. Look at the variegation in that yarn. Isn't it absolutely beautiful? Now, I was thinking this would make a really lovely lace, a lace shawl or a lace scarf or a lace cowl or something like that. Something which is going to be lightweight but lovely and provide a little bit of warmth. I love Shetland yarn. It just feels so scrumptious. So yes, this is beautiful. Langsund, I think, is Donna Smith Designs. Yep, donnasmithdesigns.co.uk. I will put the links to these in the description box below. But those were the purchases from the Woolly Good Gathering. However, I did also participate in the Kickstarter, and so I received 4 skeins of yarn altogether, and I gave 2 to Jackie, which was the Zakami yarn, which was absolutely beautiful, and I kept these 2, which is the Iolair yarn on their Gia base, that's Gigha, pronounced Gia, which is the 50% merino, 50% silk, 400 metres to 100 grams, and this colourway is Sea Glass. I think this is going to make a really pretty summer top. It's not, I'm struggling, that's maybe a better, there we go, that's a better reflection of the representation of the colour. It's kind of a very, very soft jade green with slightly darker flecks and then some flecks that are a bit yellow, kind of into yellow green. But it's incredibly lovely, and yes, I think it would either make a beautiful kind of open work shawl or it would be a really beautiful summer tee. So that's my Woolly Good yarn. Also, while Jackie and Ivana were over, we had one day when we had a car. So I don't drive. I walk everywhere and I get public transport everywhere. But every now and again, we will hire a car, and my husband, who can drive, will take us off on some kind of outing. And so he had one day off while our visitors were here, and so we drove to New Lanark. And New Lanark is a woolen mill in Scotland, not too far actually away from Edinburgh, only about an hour in the car. And it's set in this beautiful valley, which was all green and gorgeous and bright, and we got it on a dry day as well, which again, not always a given. And we wandered round the mill, and we stopped off in the cafe. We walked up to see the falls. There's a beautiful walk that you can go on that takes you up to see some lovely waterfalls, the Falls of Clyde. And then we ended up in the shop, of course. So I bought 2 sweater quantities of yarn. The first I bought was for my husband, and he chose just this natural yarn here. It's double knitting, 100% new wool. You can see New Lanark Mills and the Clyde there. Excuse my nails, I painted them for a wedding, but that's all chipping off now. Yes, so I've got enough yarn in this natural double knitting to knit him another, oh gosh, what's it called? Vest number 4 by my Favourite Things knitwear. And I've knitted one of these for him already. I knitted it using two strands of Woolly Knits British wool in the Pine Forest colourway. I think that's what it's called, pine green colourway. And I held 2 strands together and I modified to add a pocket. So, because what he really wanted was a round neck vest that buttoned up the centre. So he wants another one for this coming winter, and so we've gone for this natural colour, this natural shade, and just in the DK, so I won't have to hold it double next time. And so yes, I'll need to get cracking on that, but I'm going to leave that till after the summer. I don't think I need to be knitting on a heavyweight wool vest before the summer's over. So and then the other thing that I bought was for me, and again I bought this. I bought a sweater quantity of this. It's their double knitting, 50 grams. It's 120 meters. It's 100% pure new wool. This is in the shade Denim. Isn't that a gorgeous colour? You can see some of the different colours flecked through. And I'm thinking that I want to knit myself an Andrea Mowry nurtured sweater, because I've knitted one of those in Drops Belle in the raspberry colourway before, and I wear it every summer, so it does get a huge amount of wear out of it. However, I don't think it was the ideal yarn to knit that particular jumper from, because the texture is created by holding your yarn forward and slipping stitches. So then you kind of get these sort of float sections, or this float effect, creating an overall texture on the fabric. With the cotton, because cotton holds to itself rather than to the other strands, it stays separate, which means that it quite often gets caught, it gets pulled. Whereas knitting it in wool, I think the fibres would fuse together and create perhaps a more coherent fabric. Also, I think it would be a really lovely sweater for this winter, this coming winter. And I love this colourway, so yes, that's why I got that. Okay, what else? Oh, another thing that we did a couple of weeks ago was we went on an alpaca trek. So I took my family, my kids, my kids are all grown-ups, incidentally. I took us on an alpaca trek. We went up to bobcat alpacas up in the Pentland Hills. Again, I'll leave a link in the description box so you can find out more about them. We took these alpacas on a trail around the Pentland Hills. We had a huge amount of fun. The kids really, really enjoyed themselves. There was lots and lots of laughter. And at the very end, we got to feed all of the alpacas, including some of the babies and some of the mummies. And then we were shown the yarn cabinet. Now, this is where I purchased my yarn to do my previous curvette, the one that I mentioned with the mohair and the beads. And so this time I purchased some more yarn. It's slightly heavier weight than the one that I bought before. The wonderful thing about this yarn is it is single fleece, not single origin, but single fleece. So this yarn comes from one specific alpaca, and they tell you a little bit about that alpaca. So I got this snow white. Let me see if I can find let's see, there she is. Isn't she beautiful? So this is fleece from Snow White. It's a 4-ply. She was born on the 16th of June 2019, so we're just coming up to her 5th birthday. It says 100 grams, circa 285 meters. Now, I would say that's much more in the territory of perhaps a light DK, somewhere between a DK and a sport, rather than a 4-ply as such. But yes, I've got 2 skeins of that, I don't know what I'm going to knit with it yet, but I'll need to have a wee think and come up with something special, because it is such special yarn that you want to use it for something really lovely. And let me see. Oh yes, so as I mentioned, I had visitors come and stay, and so one of my visitors was Jackie Rose from the Jackson Rose podcast, and she brought me this beautiful bag here, and inside is this gorgeous handmade journal. Isn't this absolutely beautiful? And along with that, there is a little spool. Where is it? There it is. A little spool of plant-dyed silk ribbon, 1 meter of it. Now this is from a company called Catagolda, and the card that comes along with it says, my studio, the home of Catagolda, is nestled snugly in the small mossy seaside town of Port Townsend in Washington. In 1999, inspired by the colour and texture of hand-dyed wool felt, I started making toys for my baby girl. Over the years, I began exploring organic, sustainable and plant-dyed fabrics. I love coaxing colour from plants in my home dye studio. Much of the inspiration for my work comes from the subtle details in the natural world, where nothing is straight and nothing is perfect. I almost always have a hand-bound journal and a sharp pencil within reach. It is a practice that I started over 20 years ago to make space for my artistic, wandering ideas while keeping my methodical mind at peace. I create slowly and with intention. The things I make take time. By carefully selecting environmentally friendly materials, using up every little scrap of fabric and reusing supplies as much as possible, Catagolda strives to produce zero waste, producing less than 1 can of garbage a year, and have the lowest impact on our planet as possible. That's Alison Kaplan, who's the founder, owner, maker of Catagolda Handmade. So, isn't that a beautiful gift? So, there we go. I'm gonna fill my journal with thoughts and poems and all things. So that was one beautiful gift that I received from one of my visitors. My other visitor that I had here was Ivana of the Republic of Me podcast, and she brought for me this. I don't even know how she fitted it in her suitcase. It's still a wonder to me. She must have like Mary Poppins carpet bag tendencies, because it's very impressive. But she brought over this incredible crochet blanket. Now, if you remember, I actually mentioned about starting a crochet blanket in the previous episode. And and yes, so now that's kind of been put on the back burner, because I have a crochet blanket now, and it is glorious and it is so beautiful. And yeah, Frank and I are just absolutely, Frank's my husband, and he and I are just absolutely loving having this beautiful piece in our living room. It matches so perfectly with our new decor, and we keep it over the sofa like this so that we can wrap up if it gets a little bit chilly on in the evenings. But it is absolutely glorious. What an incredible gift. So two beautiful presents that I wanted to share with you. And one last thing, I think, which is on Sunday I attended an event at Ginger Twist Studios, because it was the launch of issue 5 of the Journal of Scottish Yarns. So they had a lovely little event. It was really, really well attended. It was chock-a-block inside. And there was some lovely Prosecco, and there was all of the amazing samples from this particular issue, as well as some previous issues. Also, I went along wearing my beautiful Fonan top, which was a design by Kat Weaver, I think in issue 3. And I had used Ginger Twist's Design of a Decade colourway that came out for their 10th birthday in their merino tweed twist. Tweed twist? No, tweed treat, that's it. Tweed treat. And their gorgeous sweet Suri lace. bases to make my thon in. So that's what I wore because I thought it was both representing the studio and it was representing the journal as well. So that was a lot of fun to wear that along. And of course, I bought myself a copy. So this is the latest copy of the Journal of Scottish Yarns. As always, it is absolutely full of the most fascinating articles. So much. There's Lying Home. So if you are interested in, there you go, there's this about the Shetland lace haps. If you're interested in knitting, which I hope you are because you've stuck around for over an hour, then you will really enjoy this. I mean, like, look at all these different. This is a piece all about kilt hose. Look at all of those different heels that they have evidence of. It's incredible. It's just, and then they've got these articles about the livestock and things. I've still to sit down and have like a really proper read of this, but you know, it's one of these things where it's just such a treat for your eyes. These incredible weaving works that they've been doing at the Dovecot weaving studios in Edinburgh to celebrate, I think it's to celebrate the first the first female doctors that studied at Edinburgh University. And then on top of that, you have some fabulous patterns. Now let me find the page that shows you. Like, look at this. I mean, just the production quality of these issues is truly phenomenal. They are real treats, and they are. Gosh, I can't remember how much they cost, but they're worth every penny. And the amount of work that has gone into these, the amount of storytelling and the crafting of the images, the design, and then obviously all of these patterns as well. So from here, this is all the patterns. This is all the stories and all the articles at the beginning here. So it's you get a lot of information and a lot of beautiful things to explore, and it does do both crochet and knitting as well. So case in point, I absolutely love this jumper, and I've discovered after having made a bit of a boo-boo when I was at the event that this is not actually knitted, it is crocheted. But I love it so much, I'm almost tempted to find somebody who crochets to sit down with me and help me figure it out. We've got Rebecca Clow's myrtle waistcoat as well, with this beautiful colour work design. You can see it there. So we've got that, we've got this lovely Pathfinder top, and they had a couple of these samples. Let's see, you can see there's kind of like an eyelet crossover design in the front. There you go, you can see a bit clearer there. And this is designed by Kelly Ordman, who is the same designer that did the Septennial Twist, and Kelly was actually there at the event, so that was lovely. Yeah. And what else do we have? We have the Isla top. This is by Sylvia Watts Cherry, who's a wonderful designer as well. She does incredible things with Natasja, but here we've got this beautiful lace work here, and Susan, who is the creatrix behind the Journal of Scottish Yarns, she was actually wearing that beautiful top to the event, and you can see on the back as well, the lace is all over the back, which would make it a really beautiful summer piece, actually. So there's just lots. There's another beautiful crochet piece, that's by Samira, who I think is, she's based down in, I think, Galashiels. And they had these lovely samples of this beautiful shawl. The design is by Solveig Glass Evans, and she's the wonderful woman behind Iolair Yarn, the one that made that gorgeous sea glass yarn. Don't you love how everything is so interwoven? So her shawl is really beautiful. The samples were particularly gorgeous. And then we have the Clooney shawl, Clooney cowl, sorry. But actually I think it comes as 4 different versions. These shorter cowls, a long cowl, or a long stole. So plenty of options there. Then we've got this gorgeous Shetland lace shawl, and this is by Elizabeth Williamson. And it's kind of a very traditional shawl design. It says, this Shetland lace shawl was named after the fiddle tune by Tom Anderson. It's called Das Locket Light Shawl. The beautiful music captures the sadness that Tom felt at the lights of the crofts in his home village slowly went out as people died and moved away from the area. Shetland lace is now an endangered craft, and we are seeing traditional ways steadily diminish and be lost. This shawl was created with traditional patterns and techniques to help to halt this loss. It has been designed in 2 versions, a narrower scarf and a broader shawl, and a knitted on lace edging. Isn't it glorious? Really beautiful. Maybe I should use that for my lovely skein. I'll need to have a look at the measurements, the meterage. Yes, I'll need to have a proper look at that. But that's very lovely too. And then what else do we have? Oh, again, I'm seeing all these amazing crochet designs. I saw the sample of this and I loved it because it's this tonal. Then the flowers themselves are kind of crocheted using mohair, and then the centre is using a variegated yarn that's the same as the main colour, but kind of references it with the variegation. It looked so beautiful. There's another one. Isn't that incredible? Oh dear, I think maybe I need to go and take a crochet class or something. Like, look, I love that. I love that so much. The Gothic wrap. It's designed by Marion Holland. I just think that's glorious. And then there's a loom wool mat as well. So it's not just knitting and crocheting, and that's designed by Sunshine Stewart, who I think is the yarn dyer behind My Mama Knits. So there we go. That's a quick run through of the patterns, the designs in the yarn in the Journal of Scottish Yarns, issue 5. So there you go. I think that's possibly everything that I've purchased. I knew I'd purchased quite a lot, but then it's been quite a long time since we've had an opportunity to speak. So, but yeah, that just kind of then brings me to what's been bringing me joy. And obviously the first thing that's really been bringing me joy was that visit from Jackie and Ivana. We had such a good time exploring Edinburgh. We went to the Port of Leith Distillery. We went to the Woolly Good Gathering. I took them both up to see Edinburgh Castle or just the Esplanade, and down the Royal Mile. We popped into Armstrong's, which, if you are familiar with Edinburgh, it's in the Grassmarket. It's kind of an Edinburgh institution. I used to go to Armstrong's after school every Friday and buy a new t-shirt, a vintage Adidas t-shirt, which I would then wear to parties and things at the weekend. So I have a long abiding relationship with Armstrong, so it's always fun to go back there and to share it with friends. We also went to New Lanark, and we also went to Beltane up the top of Calton Hill, which is the fire festival that occurs on the last day of April, first day of May. So you kind of see over the midnight mark with lots of joy and dancing, and apparently it's Scotland's biggest pagan festival. So that was a lot of dancing and a lot of fun, and yeah, we really enjoyed ourselves, and we had a beautiful night for that. It was actually relatively warm, and we got really good views out over the city, which of course you do from Calton Hill. So that was great. I've already told you a bit about Really Good Gathering, but that was certainly something else that also brought me joy. Jackie and I made a point of going to see a couple of movies while she was over. So we went to the Cameo to see a Georgian movie called Blackberry, Blackberry, Blackbird, which was kind of a really beautiful movie that kind of was a character study, I think, more than anything else, but really kind of focused in on this one particular woman in her late 40s, living in kind of rural Georgia. And I thought that was a really brilliant movie. I had never really, I don't think I'd ever really heard the Georgian language being spoken, but of course when you go see a movie and it's with the subtitles, it was such a beautiful language. So yes, I really enjoyed that. And then we went to see another foreign language movie, which was called There's Still Tomorrow, which I think is Ancora Domani in Italian, possibly. My Italian's not very good, I'm afraid. But yes, There's Still Tomorrow, which was an incredible movie. Apparently at the box office in Italy, it beat out Barbie. So not surprisingly, because it was really excellent. It's filmed in black and white. The lead actress is also the director, and this is her directorial debut, which is an absolute tour de force. It was properly wonderful, and it's basically set at the end of World War II, post-war in Rome, and it focuses in on this central character who has an abusive husband, and she's trying to kind of manage that, the dynamics of that, and also kind of reaching towards perhaps something better. So it was I found it very moving and very brilliant, and certainly has stayed with me for a very long time since having watched, so highly recommend that one. We have been watching quite a lot on the TV. Well, I'm saying quite a lot on the TV, but it's been a little while since, like I said, since I last recorded. So in that time, we have finished watching Shogun, which was on, over here I think it's Disney Plus, but I think over in the States it might be on Hulu. That was phenomenal. What an amazing achievement that, and piece of storytelling that was. Cinematographically, it was exquisite. The costumes were phenomenal. I just thought everything about it was truly, truly wonderful. Off the back of that, we then watched the second season of White Lotus, which again is an exercise in exquisite storytelling. I love how it sets itself up with creating so many questions at the very beginning of the very first episode, and then the rest of the season is really about answering those questions. So it kind of, I think it's a new and interesting narrative device for exploring the traditions of the murder mystery genre. So yeah, that was enjoyable, and we enjoyed that too. I think that was on Now TV. Yes, I think it was on Now TV. And then we started watching For All Mankind on Apple TV, and I saw that it had been recommended, and this was us just kind of getting round to it. I think there's actually 4 seasons out. We have finished the first season. We haven't started the second season yet, but we absolutely will be. The first season basically begins with the Russians winning the space race to the moon, and then kind of asking the question, like, how does that then impact what comes next? So I suppose it's like it's about an alternative history. It's posing some ideas about what the knock-on impact of that would have been. So it's really fascinating. It really makes you think. And again, I thought the characters were very well drawn. I found some of the characters I found quite difficult to engage with in the first couple of episodes, but actually over the course of the the season. I find myself warming up to them a lot more, and yeah, so looking forward to season 2 of that. And the other thing I've been watching, and this has really been because during this time of year, my husband is very, very busy with, because he's a maths, chemistry and physics tutor, and so this is the time where lots of people are having exams and they're wrapping things up for the end of the academic year, and he's also doing a lot of exam marking and a lot of external verification of institutions and all kinds of stuff. So he's super, super busy, which means that I will now watch something that he has no interest in watching. So one of the things that I knew he had no interest in watching was Bridgerton. So I have watched season 3 of Bridgerton, and yes, it was enjoyable, and it was escapism, and the costumes and the settings are all very opulent and lovely. There was quite an interesting YouTube video actually about the costume designs of Bridgerton, and I actually watched one of those costume design pieces on Shogun as well. It's one of my favourite things to do actually, is to go and explore the costume videos on YouTube after having watched a series. But the other thing that I've just started to watch is called Extrapolations, and it's also on Apple, and it's also kind of like, I suppose it is also sort of, well, maybe not even, I was going to say alternative history, but it's just kind of projecting forward to like what happens in 2037. The first episode, I think, is set in 2037, when we've kind of blasted through the temperature, the global temperature limits, and like what's the knock-on effect for us climate-wise, and then how does that follow through into individual stories, which you then see when I watched 3 episodes in the second and third episode, which are both set in 2047. So I'm enjoying that as well. I find that really interesting, and it's certainly showing how, external circumstances can apply very difficult ethical choices on people who, are ostensibly would believe themselves to be good people. So yeah, I think it's interesting from that kind of moral and psychological perspective, as well as just to kind of start asking those kinds of questions about, climate change and the trajectory of our travel as a civilization. So that's everything we've been watching. Oh, one last thing. Sewing Bee also began. I love the Great British Sewing Bee. So the first 2 episodes have been out. It's always a joy. If you're ever wondering, if you've got access to it, should you give it a go? The answer is always yes. It's delightful. But yeah, so that's everything that I've been watching. That's everything that I've been knitting and purchasing, and which kind of takes us to a poem, just to kind of tie up our time together here, and corresponding to that beautiful card that I drew at the beginning about every journey begins with a single step. The poem that I've decided to share with you today is by Ada Limon, and it's called The Problem with Travel. The problem with travel. Every time I'm in an airport, I think I should drastically change my life. Kill the kid stuff, start to act my numbers, set fire to the clutter and creep below the radar like an escaped canine sneaking along the fence line. I'd be cable knitted to the hilt, beautiful beyond buying. Believe in the maker and fix my problems with prayer and property. Then I think of you, home with the dog, the field full of purple pop-ups. We're small and flawed, but I want to be who I am, going where I'm going, all over again. So my loves, until next time, happy making, stay safe, and I'll speak to you really soon.